Well, I guess the thing is, I noticed most of anything else is probably beginning to where the city is now. Where we started with virtually nothing, and now we see a city that's really grown over the years of 50 years. It's kind of remarkable to me when you think back. I was sitting in my office, in the accounting office, and working for the power company when I got a call from Mr. Billy Bacon, the city attorney, back in 1973, I believe it would have been in June, that the Supreme Court had overruled the lower court and that we are now a city. So I didn't know whether to faint, get up and run, or what to do. I had no earthly idea. But we started having some meetings, talking with some of the state officials and planning ahead. We didn't have any money, didn't know what to do, didn't know how much to pay anybody. Nothing at that point, until we finally got in, I think, a sales tax check, and we're beginning to get some up at Bright Center up here, a little bit of place to meet, and expand it over the period of time. But from way back then, when the city had nothing, didn't even own the water and sewer, no police, fire protection, anything, till the point where we are now is just kind of amazing to me. It was just unbelievable. It actually started in 1968 by the Chamber of Commerce. I think Mr. Roy Perdue and Mr. John Moore brought it up in the Chamber of Commerce, and it began to go from there. The city of Jackson had made some remarks about annexing Pearl, and kind of went from there. People wanted to be self-governed and be able to do things for themselves, and it took. The process was, before the actual incorporation, the petition started, was I thought 5 or 6 years. So it was turned down twice in the lower court, and the Supreme Court overruled the lower court finally in 1973. So the first mayor and alderman took office in July the 1st, 1973. Brandon was against us. Some of the major landowners that in the city was against us. The city of Jackson was against us, and it was just it was a big fight. The first petition was turned down because some way, and I forget the exact wording, that Judge Porter ruled against the first petition because of the way it was signed. At that point, we took the petition around and had people to sign it. So the next time we actually opened up an office in Mr. James Netherland's accounting office down here on Beerman Road. People came in and signed the petition. Then we took it back to the court above Judge Porter, and he turned it down again. Then that's when we appealed to the Supreme Court. But having the city of Brandon, the city of Jackson, some of the local people against it, it was kind of a hard thing to get done. But the majority of the people wanted it done because they signed the petition to get it done, you know. Of course, after the incorporation, people expected immediate, all kind of protection, which, you know, they couldn't do. We had drainage problems, we had sewer problems, had no police, had no fire, had no separate school district. All of these things had to come back, and it took some time to get it done. We didn't know exactly how many people, how many citizens there were in Pearl. We had the Civil Affairs Unit, I believe of the Air National Guard Unit, came in and spent their 2 weeks that they had, went from house to house to come up with a census for the city. And of course, we had to come up with such a thing as pay scales. How much you pay the mayor, how much you pay the alderman, how much you pay the employees. And we had some comparison about some other cities that were our size that we went by. And it just started kind of slow and gradually went up. But the biggest thing with the citizens, once you were incorporated, they expected things immediately. which of course we were not able to do. And finally hired a police chief. First police chief, I believe, was Toby Wood. He was a police chief at that time in Belzona. And I think we had a couple of cars we borrowed from the sheriff's department. And we had a police chief and an assistant chief and nobody else at that time. And they were police in the city. And we kind of went from there. It was more than challenging. It was a hard thing to do. It was 24 hours a day. We had an awful lot of work to do. It just didn't happen overnight. You know, we had to take the water and sewer people to court in order to get them to own the water and sewer company. You know, and things just didn't happen overnight. It just took a while to get it done. But finally, we started getting some grant money, and as a matter of fact, we were very successful in getting good bit of grant money to help with the police and the fire department, and it was a tremendous help for us. We had a city engineer, I believe the company was called Engineering Associates. The one that really helped me was Carl Furr, one of the members of the Engineering Associates. Helped me in Washington to contact the right people to get a lot of grant money that we used to help the city an awful lot. The first thing we started when we was over in Bright Center over there, we started with just a little bit of office. We gradually increased and took in more space, and we finally got the taxes where we had to, the people to pay a certain amount of taxes. We got some sales checks in and beginning to do the things that it was just, we hired some policemen, hired some firemen. We used the volunteer fire department for a few years until we could, and as a matter of fact, our first fire department was in the church, and I think our first police department was in the church that had been vacant. But the progression to getting all the tax rolls set up, I'm sure Miss Shirley Rogers knows a lot about that. It took quite a doing, but she hired some good people, and they did a fantastic job of getting it done. Our biggest problem back then was the drainage that was affecting the city when it would rain. I mean, people just had a tremendous problem. We had water even in City Hall, and a bunch of people coming around just demanding things that could be done that, of course, we couldn't do overnight. And getting everything set up, the biggest problem was it just took a little bit of time to get it done. And we worked as fast as we could to get it done. And we finally got the separate departments going, the fire department, the police department, and taxes, and finally get into a separate school district, you know. And they didn't even want to let us have the school buses that the cities had paid for, you know. We had to fight over that. Everything was a battle. But we eventually got there. It just was a long road. I think it is the people. Once they realized that what we were trying to do was for their best interest. Yes, I think the people here are some of the greatest people on earth. You know, everybody was helpful. I have information that home it showed where people were actually donating money to help the city, the individual peoples, which is a remarkable thing, you know. Yeah, they were some bad people too now, don't get me wrong. Everybody wasn't real friendly. It just absolutely amazing me. And coming over here this morning, I did make a few little rounds just to remember. Way back, if you compared the two, if you had a comparison of the two, you wouldn't believe it. to where we started and where we are now, you really wouldn't believe it. It's just amazing to me. I commend the board and aldermen up through the many years for the jobs that they've done to in the city and the growth of the city and how the city has grown and the potential that the city still has. If they will continue to, exert themselves, I think the potential here is just amazing. I think the growth in housing and the people moving in and the improvement that the housing industry has done is more amazing to me than the Bass Pro Shop and that type of growth. What the people have done, and the builders, you take some of the subdivisions here and how the houses has changed from the time that we were mayor back in 1973 until now, it's just amazing to me. I think it was one of the best things the city done when we got the separate school district. It's a tremendous help. I think it just gives control of what we want in the city. It gives the school board the opportunity to improve the school system, which they've done tremendously. So I think that's the basic it. It gives control of our own. It was here when I got here. And I don't know, but it always has been. I think it probably because of the football between the two teams that developed it, but it was always a serious right. It's always been. Brandon is grown a lot, but I still think Pearl is the best place. So it's just, I think it was a healthy revival. I don't think it's anything bad.
Except for eat dirt, right?
Right. I don't know if I can put that in words or not. I've known Ray Rogers all my life, it seems like, and I mean, everybody in the city knew him. Everybody was aware of Ray. Everybody loved Ray. And the only thing that I didn't understand about it, he didn't like football. I don't know. Of course, Ray was a great man, and I enjoyed being around him. If you wanted somebody to talk to, if you didn't know what to say, you just stay around him. He'd talk, you could listen. I don't know, the biggest problem I had was not ever be able to find any time to sleep. In the very beginning, I had a phone in my house that only the mayors and the workmen knew the number. And of course the other phone too, but one of the other was ringing 24 hours a day. It was just a constant thing. The citizens wanted to talk to me more than you can imagine, and which that was fine, but there's only 24 hours in a day, and but later on it got better and better and better. But in the beginning, it was a very hard thing for me, the number of hours that I had to keep to do things. But people were very helpful. They would try. How Pearl Day started, I don't know if I can really tell. We had the first park, and I really don't know. Shirley would probably be able to tell you that better.
It was your idea to do something like that.
Yeah, we just kind of wanted to celebrate, what we'd done, and it just kind of developed into a special Pearl Day, and we had a big time up there. I got some good pictures about that first Pearl Day, and one thing I remember about it, we were going to shoot the fireworks off ourselves, and the firemen up there put them in the wrong place, and it just all around us. Instead of shooting up, it was exploding everywhere. It's the biggest mess you can ever imagine. I remember that about it. So we had to shut that down real quick. About to burn the city down. That's a good question. Back in the very beginning, when we started the incorporation, we had 3 names. And if I can Pearl, Riverview, you remember the other one, Shirley?
Wrightsville or something, what was it?
Brightsville,
And Pearl, yeah.
Riverview, and Pearl. And at the meeting we had, when there was, the high school auditorium was filled with people, they voted on what the city was to be called. And so it was named Pearl. There were several reasons. A lot of them wanted to get away from the city of Jackson. A lot of them wanted to come here because of the school system. A lot of them wanted to come here because of the tax system. So lower taxes, had a great school system, and it just drew people in. If Pearl has the opportunity to expand, I don't know the growth area. Do we have an area to really grow anymore? If they do, I'd say that 50 years from now, I would say that Pearl would be 50, 60,000 people. If the growth continues the way that I notice it today. It's hard for me to imagine. You talk about back in the early 60s, if you could have had the opportunity to see what the city was in the early 60s compared to what it is now, it's just amazing to me. It's just a tremendous growth. We were known, just as you've mentioned before, just a working class community more than we were a city. It's just amazing to me to where we started and to where we are now. Some of it is just hard to believe, but as I said, the mayor and boards up through the years have done a good job. I commend all of them. They've done a fantastic job.
We're super excited to still have you around for the 50th.
Yeah, it's good to be around for the 50 too.